Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Helena Patience. I'm very delighted to be here with you all today. As we're waiting for the last attendees to join us, please feel free to share in the chat where you're joining us from today. We'll get started in just a moment. Okay, and we're going to get started. Sorry, I had a little quiver with my slides there. So welcome everyone to how to leverage and elevate your team to grow your advisory practice. The purpose of this webinar today is really to help you to think about ways to really leverage the assets for your team or grow your team in order to enhance your practice, your firm's growth from an advisory perspective. So I'm delighted to be here today. Absolutely honored to be here to share with you some of the things that we're doing at my firm, Entreflow Consulting Group, and some things we've learned along the way. Some of them based on some errors we've made along the way. And I hope that that by the end of the session today, you'll go away with some good tips and tricks on what you can do to grow your business. A little bit about myself. So my name is Helena Patience. I'm based in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I'm the CEO of Entreflow Consulting Group. We're a bit of an odd duck in the space. We started off as an advisory firm 5 years ago. I wanted to do financial management consulting for small, medium-sized businesses, and found that was really hard to do without really good bookkeeping. So we eventually added bookkeeping, and then did software selection implementation, and then later added HR and tax. So we kind of did things a little bit backwards, but we've really been focused on the advisory space for about 5 years now, and cloud along the way, the entire time. Just one thing to mention as we go throughout the webinar today, feel free to ask questions in the chat. So if you have any questions come up along the way, put them in the chat. I'll try to answer them as we go. And also feel free to reach out to me after the fact if you have any questions. Okay, so our agenda for today, we've got a packaged agenda here. I'm going to do an introduction on the space, how to leverage your team, what that means for you and your team and your firm's growth. I'm going to talk about some internal structures that you should have in place in order to do this effectively. Thinking about some easy, quick wins, the reporting and analysis support that your team can provide to you that'll alleviate some of that time required for you to do advisory work with your clients, development plans that you should consider in order to get your team developing and enhancing their skills so that they can support you more. And then we're going to have some call to action and Q&A at the end. So like I mentioned, if you have some questions, feel free to ask along the way. And also, somebody mentioned that they can't hear me. Can someone else just confirm if they can hear me? Okay, yes, other people can. Okay, perfect. So if you can't, you might need to jump off and jump back in again, or just check your sound, your speakers. Yeah, good call. Okay, perfect. Thank you everyone. So that's our agenda for today. We're going to move on here. Okay, so we're going to start off with a poll. I want to just check the room here and see where you're at from an advisory perspective. So I'm just going to launch the first poll here, which is where you're at in your journey. I'll give you a couple minutes here to answer the question. Okay, I'll give you another couple seconds here. Okay, 3, 2, 1, closing the poll. Okay, so I'm going to share the results here. So we've got about 7% still not sure what advisory is, 25% not started but would like to, 26% rolled out advisory services with some clients. Okay, cool. So that 50%, hopefully you're going to get some really good tips and tricks today. And for those of you still not sure, I hope you'll get some clarity today. And doing some level of advisory with all clients. Awesome. Again, you'll probably get some good tips here today on things that you can do to help enhance and grow and make it hopefully a little bit easier on yourself. Okay, and one more poll for you is about your team. I'd like to know what the size of the teams are here. So one more poll for you, if you could take a second to answer that one. So are you looking to hire people for the first time, or do you have a couple of employees? Have you got 10 employees or so? I'd like to know the size of the teams here. I've got some tips along the way of what to do when you're hiring your first person, which is can be a bit of a scary first step, and also what to do when you've got a handful of people. Okay, and I'll give you a couple seconds here. Count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, closing the poll. I'm going to share this. Okay, so about a third of us are just yourselves, so just solopreneurs so far. Okay, awesome. Well, hopefully you'll get some good tips today on what to do with those first new hires. So it's exciting times. 35% in 1 to 3. Okay, and about 28, almost 20% in 4+ area. So at that point, different challenges to look at, especially from a segregation of duties, who does what, responsibilities, what have you. Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on. So I like to start off with a little quote, and there's nothing better than an accounting pun. Welcome to the accounting department where everybody counts. Love it. So the reason I bring this up is, the lovely thing about looking at your company, at ways to grow your company by leveraging your existing team, is that it really forces you to look at their development and focus on what they can do to improve and how they can develop and grow. And it takes a human aspect approach to your growth strategy, which is really exciting. You've got amazing people. So for those of you who do have a team, you've got hopefully a lovely group of people on your team there to support you. They've joined you on this journey to help support your vision, and they should benefit from working with you through their growth and development. Now, to start off, well done you for starting your own firm. That is not an easy thing to do. It is a lot of effort and a lot of hard work, a lot of things to consider, a lot of questions about, am I doing the right thing or not? So you've come this far. Well done. You've hired. So for those of you who have hired, you've hired people and you've developed them. Your whole team has an important role to play in delivering awesome to your clients and really doing great things for people in the world. Now it's time to think about how you can get some of the heavy lifting off your plate, and so you can grow your business, but also give your team the opportunity to grow and develop themselves. So let's do this. You can't do it on your own. You get to a certain point, and I'm sure some of you are experiencing this now, the ones who haven't hired employees. You get to a certain point where you can't do everything on your own. You need additional support. You need somebody to just get a quick thing together for you, a report, an answer to a client, dig into something that's not making sense. At a certain point, if you're looking to grow your business, you're going to need help. There's just not enough hours in the day, unfortunately, for us to do everything that we want to do. So my hope today is that through the course of this webinar that you determine and set up a plan, or start to set a plan on how you can leverage your team to grow your company. So let's talk about your team. Your team is your biggest asset, or soon to be your biggest asset. You know, investing in and cleverly leveraging these assets create incredible opportunity for not only you and your business, but also for your clients. You then have a more diverse skill set, knowledge, and expertise that you can share with your companies. But you have to have the right people on the bus, and you need to have a clear vision about what you want to do. Each and every firm out there is slightly different in some way, shape, or form. And so it's really important that you're super clear about what you're trying to do in the world so that your employees are on board with that. And your role as the leader of your company is really to hold the vision for the company and grow and develop your team. So let's talk a little bit more about your team. The good old days of recruitment are gone. It's a lot harder to find the right people for your company than it was in the past. The employee landscape is changing. We need more skilled people than ever before, and they want way more from their employer than ever before. And so the challenge with growing and elevating your team is that, you know, most employees won't necessarily have all of these skills and experience that is required in order for them to do their job right out of the gate. And so I was going to share with you a little bit about what's our journey at Entreflow with our hiring, because it's been a challenge for us to grow our team, because we never find that a single candidate will have all of the skills and experience that we need. So we need to figure out what's the best special or combination of skills and experience that will help them to be successful in the role. So in an ideal situation, we've got a tall order here, and we would want candidates to come in and join us who basically have, you know, all the business acumen of someone who's worked in you know, from an advisory perspective, who's got in-depth industry knowledge and experience, has the grit of somebody who's worked on numerous files at the same time. That you know, for someone who's maybe worked in an accounting firm. Has the experience of really helping small businesses and understands, you know, what does it mean to own a small business? What are the common challenges that they face, and solutions that really make a big difference for them? Has deep knowledge and understanding of QuickBooks Online and some of the other applications we use. It's a huge learning curve when we start working with new employees that haven't used the cloud technology, because we just do things differently in QuickBooks Online than you would, say, even in QuickBooks Desktop. They have the experience analyzing business results and making recommendations, doing budgeting, forecasting, KPI monitoring, analysis, everything really in that deep advisory space, and also has the level of love for our clients as we do, right? So it's really difficult to find people that are going to meet all the needs that we have, for instance, at our firm, in order to do the advisory work successfully. So our solution really for this is we have to take that tall list of all of our wants and needs and figure out, you know, what can be taught and what can we plan to teach. And then we hire for attitude. We need to make sure that at the end of the day that they really care about doing a great job and making an impact with our clients, because that's really what business owners want nowadays. They really want financial partners rather than people who just do the work. They want people who are going to help them to achieve the goals that they have, to mitigate the challenges that they have, to help them make the right decisions and have their back when they go through tough times. And also we have development plans in place for our team so that everyone's clear about, you know, what they need to work on and how the rest of us can support them. Okay. And what about your existing employees? So for some of you who have already hired employees, if you're changing their roles in order to support you with your advisory work, then we also need to enroll them. So you do need to have some kind of structure or event or conversation in order to get them enrolled in the vision for the new way of working together. From a change management perspective, also there's some considerations there too, making sure that they are excited and heard, and any concerns that they have are taken into to account, and they know that there's some support there for them. It might also be technology changes as well that we need to consider, that we have development plans in place for those existing employees, not just with the new employees, And then we've got some sort of structure for monitoring their progress and mentorship along the way. Now, clarity is key. We need to make sure that we have, so you've got the right people on the bus, and now you need to make sure that everyone's clear about the vision. What are we doing? What are we achieving or trying to achieve here? Employees will never fully understand your vision quite the same way you will. But what I like about this image is it's really a great metaphor for how vision works for employees. So everyone can see we're heading towards the sunset here, and they're on the boat and they can see part of the boat, but they won't necessarily see the entire boat. And that's usually the way it is for employees. They understand, they should be able to, through your vision, understand where you're trying to head, but they might not necessarily know all the pieces of the puzzle required in order to get there, but they know the direction that they're heading in. And that's okay. As long as it's clear and everyone's looking at the same direction, you should be able to get there okay. Now, what you don't want to have happen is burnout. And this can happen when you're trying to do it all alone, when you're holding on to tasks and not delegating and not giving up control and not building the trust in order to figure out ways to get your existing team to support you or new team members to support you. So we don't want your vision to look like this. We need to really enroll your team in what you're trying to do and then enable them as well. So that takes a little bit of trust especially if you're working with existing employees, to give them new responsibilities and have new expectations or growing expectations for them based on the changes in the business. All right, we're going to take a quick pause here, quick reflection. So if you can grab out a piece of paper and pen or jot something down, something to jot something down. Just take a quick pause here and think about what your vision is. And you might have it documented somehow in some way, shape, or form, and you can go review that quickly, or you can just jot down some quick thoughts on what your vision is for your firm. So imagine you're expanding into a new space here, growing your advisory services and your advisory business, and really bringing your employees in as part of this in a whole new way. What does this kind of look like for you? So I'll just give you about 30 seconds to jot down some thoughts on what this vision would look like for you. Okay, and another reflection for you. What are all the services that you provide right now? So just really quickly on your piece of paper, just jot down all of the services that come to mind that you're offering right now, the quick ones that come to mind right away. So it might be bookkeeping, it might be tax returns, it might be GST filings, it might be payroll, it could be analysis, it could be budgeting. So just jot those all down on your piece of paper. Okay, next I want you to add all of the services that you want to provide that are in line with that vision that you jotted down. So maybe if you're just jumping into the advisory space, maybe you want to do some business analysis or some KPI tracking, some cash flow forecasting, financial health track of some kind. What are some other things you want to offer? It might be, jumping into payroll or tax, or there's also advisory that we can do within those areas too, salary and compensation advising, or from a tax perspective, tax planning. So just add any other services that you would like to provide that are in line with that vision that you're creating for yourself. And then last, I want you to just put a check mark beside all of the services that you think your team can, they are supporting you with, or you think that they can start to support you with. Okay. Now let's figure out how do we get you from where you are right now to where you need to get to, or where you want to get to. And what we're going to cover today is really some structures that you want to have in place in order to do this effectively, the types of work that your team can start doing right away to support you, and the development plans you want to have in place to support them along the way. All right, so let's start off with those structures. And I'm going to share with you, now there's many things you can do in this space. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about what we do at Entreflow, and hopefully that gives you some tips. And as we go along the way, if anybody feels called to share with the rest of the group here some things that they're doing that's really helpful insofar as being able to have some of that advisory levels support done by their employees, by all means, please add it into the questions window, because it's really great to hear what other people are doing too, and share that knowledge and expertise. Okay. So really, you can't do it alone. I'm going to keep saying this over and over again, but the expectations need to be clearly defined and consistently executed as much as possible, so that it's clear for your team what you want them to be doing. Okay. Now, in order to do this work effectively, you need to standardize and you need to automate as much of the work as possible. Do away with the manual data entry and what have you work as much as possible, so that you've got more time to do the advisory work, and also over the next little while to support your team as they're stepping in to help you out in that space. I always call myself a lazy accountant, because I'll figure out ways to automate whatever I possibly can. And so I'm declaring it as now the dawn of the lazy and delegate, in order for us to step into this space. So you need to be automating as much as possible, and you also need to be really focused on delegating as much of the work as possible. Now that can be really tricky when you're a solopreneur hiring your first employee, or if you have just a handful of employees and you're still figuring out, what do you feel comfortable about them taking on and not? Do you have the time to support them, to answer their questions, to help them redo work if they've made some errors or misunderstood? It's a lot of things to think about. But essentially, in order for you to get from A to B, this is going to have to happen. You'll have to get really comfortable with trust and with delegation and with figuring out ways to automate the work that you do. It all starts off with the client onboarding. So you want to make sure that from the second you have a new client joining, that everything from there on is as automated and clear as possible. So you need a clear plan with each of those clients and what their needs are, what needs to be done to fix the past, and what needs to be in place for the future for them, so that your team has their blueprint of what needs to happen. Now, on our end, we have a very structured sales cycle. So we have a discovery session with the clients. We can get really clear about what the big needs are and how we can support. And then we do an assessment, a paid assessment, to go in and check out their books, see how bad is, and figure out what needs to get fixed, and how we might want to structure the data differently based on how we can pull the reporting right now, and what the types of reports they want to see, the insights they want to get out of your business. We have a clear proposal in place for that onboarding work, so that first set of first project to basically get them up to scratch, and then for the monthly work going forward. And then we value price, and obviously have use a authorized debit to make sure that we're profitable and we have good cash flow internally. So we charge our clients at the start of the month for the month in question for this work, and we price it based on the value that we're delivering. So that value has to be clear, not only to the client, but also to your employees, about what is the work that we're meant to be doing, what is the value that everyone's expecting to get out of this. So our proposals are very detailed, has the details about the goals and challenges in there. It has the details about, you know, the list of things that we're going to do from an onboarding perspective, and also what this is going to look like going forward, so that everyone has access to that information written down that they can go back and look to make sure that they're clear. And then the onboarding is also very important. So the second we kick off with that client, we have really good structures and templates in place so that we know these are all the things we need to talk about, all the questions we need to cover. They need to understand our process and how we work and what to expect from us. We have the onboarding project, like I mentioned, where we're really looking at data, getting the data up to scratch, and then the systems that we might want to put in place. There's been a couple questions in the chat here about software, so we're going to talk about some software as we go. And someone, Claudine, had a really good recommendation to ask the rest of the team what software they're using too. So when we get to that point, it'd be great if everyone could just share some of the things they're using. Julie asked about a system for client onboarding. So we use Google Drive as part of G Suite for most of our work with our clients, and an application called ClickUp, which is kind of like Asana, and we use that to track all of the things that we're working on, our project plans, our Gantt charts, and all that sort of business, so that we have a plan for them about what work we're going to do when. I've used Asana in the past. I think Carbon is a really fabulous application in this space too, and as well, QBO Work is really awesome too. So especially if you're a smaller size firm, it's a really awesome tool in order to get everyone clear about who's doing what when. And I think there's ways that you can share that with your clients to really quite easily. So I hope that helps. We also do a CFO setup. So our advisory, we call fractional CFO, but we have a bulk of work, a project from the get-go to set KPIs, budgets, forecasts, do some analysis, figure out what's going on in the company. So we'll do that right away so that we have all that information as we kick off here, and we can figure out where the team can support. Because there might be some bits of analysis that maybe one of the accountants can do for the CFOs during that kickoff, and that gives them the opportunity to really get their hands dirty in ad hoc analysis. And then once the onboarding project is done and the CFO setup is done, we're really passing that file over to the accounting team so they can go into maintenance mode. And throughout that whole process, we have a structure where we have a weekly meeting with the client until everyone's feeling super comfortable, and then we move into our monthly cycle. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go here. Our monthly cycle, here we go. So we have this structure at Entreflow called the 5-5, and it used to be called the 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, but as you can see, it's a little bit of a mouthful, and everyone complained about the length of it and was calling it different things. So we rebranded it as 5-5, which is a silly name for a process, but it works. But basically, we have a 5 buy whens, and they happen on in intervals of 5, hence the 5-5. And basically, our monthly structure with our clients to enable the people on our team that are doing the advisory and working with our clients to be able to get the data, the quality they need it, the timeliness they need it, so that they can get prepared for the advisory work. So essentially, we're doing real-time bookkeeping, and we get all the transactions pushed and the banks reconciled as much as possible by the 5th of the month. Anything that we're not sure about, we just put to uncategorized so we can at least reconcile. By the 10th, we have a mid-month call with the client to go through any questions, any business updates that we need to know, especially for the forecasting. Our accountants or the team is on those calls as well, so they're understanding what's happening in the business. By the 15th, we have a peer review, and we send the reports off to the clients. We have a monthly meeting by the 20th, and then by the 25th, we're sending out any updated reports to the clients and kind of closing up the month. So this structure really makes it easy for the whole team to know what do they have to get done by when. Somebody asked about the reports that we send. So we send out, it kind of depends client to client, but we're definitely sending out some KPI reports so that how they're tracking on their key performance indicators, the financial statements, their forecasting, always sending out the AP and AR summaries, depending on what's happening in the business. So we'll customize them to each client, and I'll share with you some applications that we use to do that along the way here. Great question. Okay, then we need some really good technology and processes. So you're doing everything manually, you're not saving enough time here to do the advisory work. So your apps are going to save you lots of time. And your processes around those applications need to be consistent as well, so that if one employee were to jump into another client file, that they would do the same thing. So some of the technology we use, so we use QuickBooks Online, obviously. Fathom and Giraffe are two of the applications that we use for reporting. So Fathom for KPI reporting and financial statements, sensitivity analysis, break-even analysis, those sorts of things. Giraffe is a planning application that we use for budgeting and forecasting, and some dashboards where we're able to compare plans against each other, especially when we're doing scenario analysis. So looking at, okay, if we have this budget and then say we get 100K of investment versus 500K of investment, how's that going to land, and what will we be able to spend, and what will the profitability look at the end of the day? We're able to then stack up those in a nice little bar chart, or however, how those two plans will deliver profit and cash flow, for instance. So really great application. For dealing with cash, so we use Veeam or WayPay, Pluto, or Bill.com. Lots of different reasons why we use one over the other for AP and AR. And as I said, if there's any other applications that you use along the way, please feel free to just jot them into the chat here. So you can share with people what other things you're using. Someone asked if I use HubDoc or Receipt Bank. Yes, I use both. So it depends on the client and what's going on for them. And we use Verify IQ for peer reviews. ClickUp, like I mentioned, for project and task management. We use Slack for communication. And we have our process documents and our standard operating procedures to ensure that the client, to ensure that our employees understand how we're using these applications and kind of what the expectation is with that. I'll give you an example. So like I mentioned, we use HubDoc for our document management. You know, a lot of times when we take files over from other accountants or bookkeepers, if people are moving, we'll find that they might have a HubDoc account, but then they're not actually pushing the transactions or the documents into QuickBooks. It's not super helpful. We are always pushing the PDFs in at the transaction level, so that you've got that auto proofing, you've got that documentation stored on two different servers. It's easily accessible. If someone's in QuickBooks Online in that transaction, they can click a link and see the document without having to go back into HubDoc. So it's just having that clarity on what the expectation is for the use of the applications. Somebody asked about the presentation slides. I think we can make those available after the fact. All right, and now you've got the technology in place, but you got to make sure you're leveraging it properly. So, like I said, you got to be using them correctly. Technology can certainly be your rose or thorn, depending on how you approach your onboarding and training. If people aren't using the applications correctly, it can be an absolute mess. You know, good, well-structured data is everything in the advisory space. And if your team isn't using, for instance, QuickBooks Online effectively, say with the classes or consistently with classes or projects, whatever, you've probably all seen it before, it can get pretty messy pretty quickly. So, you know, you need to make sure that everyone understands and uses the applications as they were designed to be used and in the best way possible. So here's a couple of technology philosophies that we have at Entreflow. You know, all of our teams should be getting their certifications completed right away. So hiring tip, we will sometimes, especially if they've never used QuickBooks Online, have candidates complete the core certification before we will proceed with an offer. That's kind of cruel, but you'll find out right away how excited they are about working with you or not. So we've had people who have refused to do it. They don't see the value. They don't want to put in the effort. We know that they're not going to have the right grit for our company. You'll see people who will take the challenge and go. It's an I think it's about an 5 to 8 hours certification. We'll go and do it like that night and come back and send us their completed certification the next day. You know that they're dedicated and they're super excited about working with you. So, but those certifications, if they don't get them, you know, the advanced complete and the other ones, we'll have them complete those in the first their probationary period. Sorry, all the certifications, so they know the best practices with those applications. Now, There's also things that in processes that we have within the applications that aren't covered in those certifications. So we also have our team shadow peers to get some of those best practices too. Our philosophy is really use the application as it was designed to be used, keep up to date with new features. So, jump on some of the application's webinars, and when they do product releases, or they'll often send out articles or newsletters or what have you about changes or updates, and also get involved in sharing features that you want to see in those applications, because they really like the feedback, and you can help to set them in the right direction for what you think should happen with that application, the features that they should offer. You want to make sure you're managing the data consistently. So like I said, if we're using classes, let's use it consistently all the time. Otherwise, it turns into a big mess really quickly. And automate everything possible. So, if you don't have native integrations, you can also use an application like Zapier to move data from one place to another. Or there might be a third-party application that will connect to applications if they don't natively integrate. But, find ways to move the data from one place to another as quickly as possible. Can't stress this enough. Automate, automate, automate. Be one with your inner laziness. So find ways to get things going as quickly as possible. It'll save you time so you can do more high value work for your clients, and also more high value focus time for your own business. So we use apps wherever possible. We have the integrations in place wherever possible. We use Zapier, like I mentioned. We create templates wherever possible. So even just like our kickoff meeting agenda is a template. So try to get all that stuff structured in place as much as possible. And then you can also, what's really helpful, especially as you're moving into a new space where you've got team members doing different tasks or new people coming in, is to map out the triggers and the actions in your business. So when, for instance, when a proposal is signed, then what happens and how does that get communicated? And then what happens? And then what happens? And then what happens? And then what happens? Until we get to the point where they're in maintenance mode. So it's good to sit down with your team and maybe map that out and figure out ways to make the process more efficient. And the more they're enrolled in the decision making about how to make this more efficient and participate in that conversation, the more they're going to follow the process and make suggestions on how to make it better for everyone along the way. Okay, we're going to take a quick pause here and do another quick reflection. So head back to your paper and pens and answer this question. What structures do you have in place for client onboarding and ongoing client work right now? So I mentioned our Cinco, our process documents. We've got technology in place. What are some things that you have in place for your client onboarding and the ongoing client work? FormStack, cool. Well, I've never heard of FormStack. That's interesting. We'll be nerding out this evening. Okay, and if there's any other applications that people use, feel free to add them into the questions or the chat there too. Jetpack, very cool. I've heard really good things about Jetpack. Okay, and then on to the next reflection here. What structures do you want to have in place for client onboarding and ongoing client work? So think about things that you'd want to have in place in order to make all this work more efficient for your clients and your onboarding. Yeah, Spotlight and Carbon, great. Yeah. These might be processes, they might be technology. Might just be ways of working, ways of communicating, lots of different structures you can have in place. Heather asked why I moved from Asana to ClickUp. You know, we've been using Asana for a really long time, and I think people are just getting bored with it, honestly. And they were not using it. They started to not use it as much and as effectively. So we needed a little bit of a change. And ClickUp actually is less expensive and has more features. They're on a rapid feature development right now, train. And I think also just got a whole whack of funding, which is probably why they're developing a lot. So they seem to be a lot more focused on rolling out features. So from a feature set perspective, it's a lot richer than Asana. Greta asked about file transferring during tax season. We just get them to put stuff into Google Drive for us. So we have a client share folder and they just dump all their documents in there. I think there's a feature through some of the tax software that we use to capture it, but we just found it was more effective to just do the same thing like we do for all the rest of our client work. Okay, answer some questions there. Next, let's think about the technology. So what apps are you using right now? List those out, and then I'm going to ask you, what apps do you want to use? So list out the ones you're using and the ones that you want to use, and you'll have heard some good apps from the rest of the team here as well. If you haven't heard of Carbon or Spotlight or Jetpack, check those out. They're fabulous for this space too. Retessa, great as well for your pre-authorized debits. They're really inexpensive. T-Sheets, HubDoc, Sage 50, Jetpack, Zapier, yeah, great. Awesome. A way for all my staff to see my receivables. That's a great one, Marianne. I think you can give them reports access, I think, in QBO. What I've done in the past is set up a custom report that sends out once a week the AR listing to specific email addresses, and then they don't necessarily have to have access to my my QBO account. So if you want to keep it separate, you can have automatic reports sent out, the AR report, or you can give them report, I think, only access and give them access to income related things, so they don't necessarily see the whole P&L if you want to keep that level of segregation. Cool, no worries, Mary. And e-commerce clients, yeah, if they're using Shopify or Amazon, getting data from those apps into QuickBooks Online can be a bit cumbersome. So we use an application called A2X. I'll just type it in here to transfer data. Oh, I don't know if I can send that out there. Sorry. It's A2X, like yeah, thank you. Thank you. And it's fabulous for moving the data around. Saves you a lot of time. And there's another one I've recently heard of, but I can't remember the name of it. So if anybody knows any other good applications for e-commerce, I mean, honestly, if someone's looking to get online sales going, I would recommend not doing custom development unless you have something really complex. So just jumping onto Shopify is really easy. Square and Shopify, yeah. Cinder, cool. I've never heard of that one for e-commerce too. Great. A2X is good. I'm in BC, and the way that it handles sales tax is a little bit not as great as I would love it to be, because we have so many different, at least 2, 3, maybe 4 options with sales tax here. So there's just a little bit of a workaround we have until we get that piece developed a bit more. Okay, I hope I got everything there. And there's some other bookkeep. Okay, there's some great applications in the chat, in the questions box there too, so check those out. Okay, we're gonna move on. Okay, next is quick win reporting and analysis support your team can provide you support with. Okay, so my theory here, okay, is if you don't have a team yet, or your team is just really supporting you with the more compliance work, and you want them to start supporting you with advisory work. If they haven't had like in-depth experience doing some of that that level of work before, then there's things that they can start taking off your plate right away that will help you with your advisory work in the reporting and analysis space. It's a little bit lower risk. They can learn it quite quickly. We've got applications to like safeguard the data quality control. So I'm going to give you some tips on what you can do right away to get them to support you. So far we talked about having the right people, the right vision, determining the services, talking about your client onboarding, your monthly cycle, the tech and processes, and automating everything. And now we talk about the reporting and analysis areas where you can get your team to contribute. If you're, like I mentioned, if your reporting process is really automated, then it's easy for them to pull this together for you. And then as they develop their skills, they can also start doing some like reviewing the results and sharing their findings with you. And they might, add a benefit. They're developing their skill set. They're developing their magic eye for catching weird things. But they might find things that you don't see, and they might also have some suggestions that you might not have considered. So if you haven't standardized your reporting, you really ought to. So, as much as possible, don't use Excel, use an app. I used to be a financial analyst. I love Excel more than most people. But honestly, from a growth perspective, it's really hard to scale if you're doing everything manually in Excel, because then you really have to hire people who have that deep expertise and data quality thinking skill set, and that's going to make it a little bit harder for you to find the right people for your team. So use an application. It'll reduce the data risks, harder to make it easier for you to hire people, and also you have to consider, just from a time perspective, if you have to manually take data from PBO and plunk it into Excel, it's going to take time. So the apps are going to ensure automation and quality control. And I touched on this already. So aside from the applications within QuickBooks Online itself, you can do quite a lot of reporting, and you can customize those. So like I mentioned with my AR hack, you can set up those custom reports and have them automatically sent out to clients or to your team to review at specific cadences. Fathom, I mentioned, is one of the applications that we use with all of our clients. Absolutely love this application. Here's a screenshot of the KPIs, the key performance indicators. So we set those with our clients. We set targets with them. You can get your team to go and do some benchmarking research, so they can go and see what is the common gross margin for restaurants in Vancouver. That's something that's easy for them to do, and come back to you with some findings. They can also look at how the results have been for that company and come up with suggestions on what those targets might need to be, also taking into account what the company's goals are, obviously. But they can take a look at the results when the books are closed and say, hey, this is kind of funny. How come, for this example, why did our accounts receivable days increase by 27 days? Like, what happened there? And point that out. Maybe dig into some of the key. I can go to the AR summary and see aging summary and see who are the truant ones. Someone asked about using Fathom for business plan and projections. You can't put a business plan in here. Live Plan is a really good application for business planning. The projections, yes, they have a new feature for a forecasting feature features that have just come out, and I know it's been on their cards for like 3 years because I've been nagging them about this for a while. I have not done a demo or tested it out yet, so I can't really speak to it right now. But when I talked to them about it previously, it sounded like it was going to be pretty good. If anybody has used it yet, please share your thoughts on it so far. It seems to be fairly automated, which is pretty cool, and there are some drivers. I know you can use drivers in there, which is great. But anyhow, here's Fathom. This is something that easily your team can set up for you, and they can probably do some quick analysis. Just another view of Fathom too. Here's the cash flow statement, which our clients love. It shows you where did the money go, like, and what was the overall change in cash. And this is something that they can take a look at and validate and see, okay, that's interesting. What was going on with the fixed assets, but what actually happened there, and go back into the books and see what those transactions are. Maybe it was an error, something's booked incorrectly, or maybe there was an actual legitimate change. Here's a screenshot of Giraffe, which is our planning application that we use at Entreflow. We do some pretty complex planning for our clients because a lot of them are, doing seed raises, Series A raises, or what have you. So we need to have a lot of scenario analysis. So if we get our funding at this point, then what's going to happen? And if we don't, what's going to happen? And they have shareholders that need really complex custom reporting. So it's a really great workhorse for us. It connects up to QuickBooks Online. It brings in your actuals, and it's all driver based. So really fabulous application. Here's a screenshot of the dashboard that's in there. So you can show, I mentioned how you can stack up different plans against each other and see what the delta would be. There's lots you can do here. And then as well, it'll, just a small screenshot, but it'll show you kind of bar chart for your budget or forecast and how the different areas will stack up. And then it'll show you the actual, this is the cash view of the cash forecast, but Giraffe does three-way forecasting. So you can forecast your P&L, your balance sheet, and your cash flow all at the same time. So you do all your drivers, put in all your assumptions, and then basically it'll flow through to those three financial statements, which is pretty awesome. Somebody asked about a good invoicing app that would sync with QBO. So if you're using it, there's a lot of industry specific applications. So I'm thinking like if you're using like Deer or Unleashed or something like that for inventory or manufacturing, usually they'll have, or some of the construction applications will have invoicing built into it, so you can invoice out. I don't know of any other specific invoicing specific applications aside from just doing it out of QuickBooks Online, but if anybody has used one, please share that in the chat there. Okay, next is financial statement analysis. So you've got your reporting done, okay? This is I love doing this with new employees and just getting them to build this skill set, because it's really how you can get them to kind of tune their eye to watch out for anomalies. So what you can do is get them to pull the month over month P&L and balance sheet reports, and then get them to look for things that look different. So check the trends line by line, like is it going up or down? Are we missing a rent one month? Is there a phone bill missing? Those are easy things that pop up. Are there errors? Was something booked to one type of account one month and then a different type of account another? So just doing that is a really good way for them to kind of get their eyes used to checking for data quality and interesting things that might be happening in the business. They can share their findings and maybe some recommendations. So what I usually get them to do is print off the statements and just mark it up and then jot some ideas down on how they would improve it. And they can also, once they get comfortable with this, maybe do this for another team member's files. So do a little bit of a peer review and when they're ready and share their findings, and maybe they'll again spot things that that accountant hadn't noticed before. And the AP and AR analysis as well. So do we have some common issue people that we need to deal with? Is it over 90 days? Is it a whole bunch of customers, but within a shorter period of time, or a handful of customers that are delinquent for a long period of time, and some recommendations that they might have to improve that. And then also another thing you can do to help them to kind of flex their advisory skill set is to get them to do case studies. I know I say case studies and people are like, oh, I hated doing case studies in school, but they're actually really great. And we've done them before on our team. So great for team building and business analysis development. So you can get them to do the cases individually or in groups as teams, or they can sign up for this online case competitions. There's even some cash prizes, which is pretty exciting. Basically, it's like maybe 4 hours or so. You can find some cases online and just do that as a fun team event. They are fun though. And then essentially once they finish, they can share their work and reflect on how it went, reflect on any learnings they can take to their clients. So the nice thing about cases is you're looking not only at the financials, but the entire business. So it helps them to really think about their work as supporting the client's business, not supporting the client's accounting function, because they'll start to think about other aspects of the business like HR, operations, IT, blah, 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 marketing, what have you. And then as well, they can think about areas like what areas were you really excited to play around in that case, and is there areas of interest that you've got there that we could maybe develop further, or some things you want to learn, or find out that maybe someone else on the team has like really in-depth knowledge in this area that you didn't even know. So there's lots of insight you can get from doing these case studies, and they're kind of fun. Okay, back to your pen and paper. Where is your team currently supporting you with your advisory work? So we touched on this a little bit when you're listing out your services. So maybe just go back and just review that a little bit. And also, where do you want them to be supporting you with your advisory work? So based on what I've shared with you so far, has that enhanced some of the areas that you'd like them to support you with? Is it giving you some other ideas, for instance? So just jot some thoughts down there. And Paul, yes, Fathom can do consolidated reporting. You basically set up a Fathom account for each of the companies, and then you set up an additional Fathom report and then create a consolidated group. You just need to make sure that the chart of accounts are as lined up as possible from a nomenclature perspective. So there's sometimes a little bit of work just to clean up how the chart of accounts are done in each of those individual files, just to save a little bit of work. And then within Fathom, you can map them all. Really good question, Claudine. With providing advisory services, is there a concern the client will blame you for the advice? How do you deal with this? No problem, Paul. I mean, you have to just set up the relationship. It's their business. Ultimately, it's for them to make the decision. I mean, you want to give them as much data-backed, supported advice as possible. There's always a chance there might be an error, and just say, okay, here's my numbers. You know, I'm pretty sure they're going to be fine here. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I recommend. You know, what are your thoughts and how would we work through that? I've never had a client come back to me and say, I blame you for this travesty. I think, you know, you just have to build up that relationship and take on people who are not going to be weird about the advice that you're giving them. It's their business at the end of the day, so they can't blame you for it. It's their decision. And you want to be, you know, pretty certain that what you're sharing with them is going to be effective, and probably not speak in absolutes. Like, I have seen people do this before and it was really helpful for them. It might be helpful for you, or I can see this happening in your business and I'd really recommend that you did this. It'll probably deliver this kind of result, rather than say you have to do this and then this will happen. But I haven't had any trouble there before. Okay, now onto the development plan. So super valuable, takes a little bit of time just to build a template for in some way, shape, or form, and very, very valuable for your team. So employees really value us as leaders taking the time to reflect on what we think they need to learn, how we think they should learn it, when we should expect them to get it, you know, learned by, and what success looks like. It really can help to deepen the relationship that you have with your team member, so that you can have really open and honest conversations about their performance and their development, because you've set the stage for what your expectations are. It's like you're doing a good job is really, really abstract. Having a development plan in place makes it super, super clear for everybody about what the expectations are and what you want this to look like, and also that you're taking the time to think about how you're going to support them with their development, and that their development is in fact important. It means so much for an employee. They, you know, most people, you know, leave their job because, well, two reasons: their manager, or because they're not learning and developing. And I mentioned at the start how the employee landscape has really changed a lot, and even more so during the pandemic. We're finding a lot more demands and expectations, and people are really clear about what is going to work for them and what's not going to work for them. And you know, having a clear path for their development and career progression is super important. And if you're a smaller firm, you might not be able to offer them career progression quite yet, but you might be able to offer them really, really good development so that when they go off to that next job, they're in an, you know, they've got way more experience and skills than when they joined you. And it's, I think, really important to be open and honest in those conversations. And, you know, first of all, not assume that someone's going to start working with you and carry on working with you for 30 years. It's just not going to happen. Like, you're lucky if you have someone stay with you for 3 years from in this day and age. So, you know, just if you are open and honest with that concept there, then you can think about how do we both support each other as much as possible in the short term here or the long term here over the journey of your relationship together. A development plan is super helpful. I love this puppy. I could watch this puppy for hours. But so you basically, we're at the point now where you know, your conditions are set. You've got your vision, you've got the right people in place, you've got your structures, and you've got your technology, you've got the work that they can support you with, and your structures to support. Now it's time to get the right people doing the right things with the right level of support. So let's talk about these development plans here. So you got to hire the right people. So this is hopefully the section for those of you who haven't hired someone before. We'll get some good tips. And for those of you who are expanding, some tips for how to improve the way that you're hiring. But essentially, you got to think about the impact. It's when you're hiring people, especially in a service-based company, every single person is so crucial to the success of your business. The cost of turnover, the cost of bad hires is so high that you really need to be very, very careful with every person that you bring into your company. And there's kind of a saying in HR that is, you hire slow and you fire fast. And it is really true. You got to be careful about the people you bring on, because they have a lot of impact in the success for your business, your team culture, and everything that you're building. So the impact of hiring right is that it continues to build a strong company culture, strong reputation, employer brand, increases collaboration within your team. You hire really fabulous people, they're going to be able to take your company further than you might even think possible, just by being there, being present, enrolled in your vision, and having skill set to be able to do things that you don't have the time or maybe even the skill to do sometimes. It creates space for innovation when you hire those right people who are just open to new ways of doing things. Reduces your turnover, reduces your costs, reduces your stress load, gray hair and all the hair dye costs, and propels you to your mission and vision. So it's really, really important that you get those right people on. And if it takes you a little bit longer than you feel like you can tolerate, that's okay. At the end of the day, it's about the quality of the people that you're getting and how aligned they are with what you're up to in the world. Now, the impact of not hiring right is, obviously the cost of turnover, the onboarding, the training, the eroded team culture. What's really hard to measure is the productivity impact of the team culture being eroded. People, if they're annoyed or upset about what's happening with other people on the team, are less effective. We know that for sure. It's really hard to quantify, but because it'll vary from situation to situation, but it is a huge impact. Disengagement and lack of productivity, you mentioned that, pulling you and the team away from growing your business. So every minute that you're spent dealing in drama is pulling you away from, working in vision. More time spent on firefighting, and then it also makes it difficult to hire in the future as well. So just be really careful. Make sure that you take a step back and think really clearly about these things here. So what is your mission, your vision, and values? And you want to hire people that are in line with those things. The jobs that we have to fill are so much more complicated than data entry clerks or AP and AR clerks. It's way more challenging and difficult than that. I mentioned one of my earlier slides about our wish list for our candidates. They're pretty complex roles now that require a lot more skill, a lot more empathy, really dedication to learning and development, big hearts. They have to care about the companies that we're working with. It's a lot more challenging, so you need to take the time to reflect before you jump in and hire, to make sure that you're hiring the right people. Are you going to look for? You need to have your contracts in place that are super clear about expectations there. intentional, what's your intention for your company culture? Helpful thing to do is just jot that down. Like, what do you want your culture to look like? Share that with the team and then figure out how to build that. Skills gaps and personalities on the team. So you can think about if you've got a handful of employees, what skill set is missing, and how can you hire someone with that particular skill set just to help broaden the team's knowledge. And then also personalities. You want to make sure that people are going to like working with each other. That's just going to be a much more enjoyable and impactful environment. You can look at building your future state org chart. So just map out, okay, here's my team now. Here's how I want it to look by the end of the year. Here's how I want it to look by the end of 2 years or 3 years, whatever it is, and share that with your team and get their feedback. You'll be surprised. Their enrollment will really help to catapult you down that route faster. What compensation package do you want to offer? Benefits. Benefits are one of the least expensive, most valued piece of your compensation package. The average for a single individual about $100 a month, to maybe 150 or so for a family. But the value that people place on that is way more than a $1,200 raise. So something to consider is getting a benefits plan. If you are a solopreneur and you can't easily get a benefits plan because you don't have enough employees, then one of the best things to do is go to your Chamber of Commerce. They usually have a pooled benefits program available for members. That'll get you a benefits plan for your team. It's like way more cost effective than if you went in to a broker with just 1 or 2 employees. Your payroll, how you're going to timing of that and how you're going to do that, the career progression for that hire, and the key competencies of the new hire for the new hire's success. So lots of things to think about, but take some time to reflect, how you want this to look, and then make sure that you're developing a job description and a job ad that really speaks to that, so that you're attracting the right people. Okay, it's not just we're looking for a bookkeeper. They have to have 2 years experience. They have to be really detail oriented. It's not clear enough. You want potential candidates to look at your job ad and go, that's totally me. I really want to work with those people. So it's got to be clear. All of this should be clear in how you're presenting yourself to the outside world. Okay, next you want to onboard them effectively. So they need to know what they're supposed to be doing. So after they are hired, have a plan for the first 3 months. So, share the vision and mission and values with them. Yes, we'll send out the slides after. Make sure they have the software training done, the process training done, shadow the team. You can take a lot of pressure off yourself by getting the rest of the team to train the new hires, just by shadowing them and showing them the ropes. Give them some small projects to work on. Maybe they can jump in some client meetings with you and shadow you and what you talk about, understand what you talk about and what's important and how you run your meetings so that they know what to look out for. Set expectations on what they need to know by when, and then you can check for understanding. Ask lots of questions, make sure they're writing everything down, make sure it's sinking in. And then, for a hire or with a job change, if anybody's, getting new responsibilities through this transition that you're going through, make sure you have that onboarding, that 3 months kind of time to focus on building their skills up. Make sure you've got stuff in the calendar as well, structures in the calendar. Maybe have some weekly one-on-ones to check in with them and see how they're doing and what they're learning. 3-month review and goal setting. You probably want to, it's advisable to at least be having a performance review with your employees at least once a year. We do them quarterly, and we really just focus on, how's their performance going? How would they rate themselves? How do we rate them? What are some areas we can support each other? And their goals. So are they, did they achieve their goals for the last quarter? What are their goals for the next quarter? This is helpful for, like I said, anyway, for your existing employees, but then also for your new hires, so that it's clear for them where they're at in their performance. And then create those development plans. So you've got the right people in, you've got them onboarded. Now you should have, as part of the onboarding, this plan documented, written down, so it's super clear and not just verbalized, about what the expectations is. So you have to complete this by then. These are the courses or the webinars I want you to attend. These are the processes that I need you to master. These are the clients that I want you to start off with and the expectations there. Who they will shadow, what the goals are for the first 3 to 6, 9 months. You know, some check-ins maybe in the first 1, 2, 3 months just to see if we're on track against our plan. And, you know, all this can be documented in an HRIS, a human resources information system, or you can use your project management system if it's got good user permissions. You can keep it confidential. There's, you know, or you can Word document, whatever, but just have it written down so it's clear what the expectations are. And you should have this not just for new employees, but for all of your employees. And so if you're implementing this for any new hires, it would make sense for you to sit down with your existing employees and put together a plan for them. And it's as best as possible to do it collaboratively. They'll be more enrolled in, especially for existing employees, in the plan for them. And then you want to review it. So check in on that at that 1, 2, or 3 month mark. Review the goals. We do, like I mentioned, 360 reviews. So, you know, we ask them, you know, what do they feel they learned? What do you enjoy most or least about this role and what you're up to? Is it what they expected? How can we better support them? Any suggestions for improving the business? It's really, really cool to see the insight that new hires have when they bring into the company, because they still have their old company fresh in their brain. And so they'll see things that we're doing and go, hey, at my last company, we did that slightly differently, more like this, and it might actually be really relevant here. Great, let's just implement it and save some time. So giving them the stage to actually share their feedback is really beneficial for you and your business growth. And then there's also informal development too. So there's the structured stuff that really helps to ground the yes, we are developing, yes, we are moving in the right direction, but then there's also things that you can have in place just from a culture perspective that will help to encourage an ongoing and informal development. So just a couple of things that we do at Entreflow. We have Slack channels where people can share information. So it might be articles that they've read or webinars coming up that they've gone to, that they've got some tips from. You know, they might share some of their learnings in a team meeting. So just try and create a culture of sharing and sharing knowledge. It's not a competitive culture at Entreflow, it's more of a collaborative culture. So the idea is really to help each other out. If people have are doing something for the first time that they're not sure about, it's totally okay to put their hand up and ask for help. And the rest of the team will, or someone else on the team will put their hand up and help. So, you know, we kind of start that from this, you would create that expectation when they first join that it's a collaborative environment, and share your learning, share your mistakes, ask each other for help. And it just creates a much better environment where I don't have to be the expert solving all the problems. The team can work that out themselves. We also do a start, stop, keep brainstorming session occasionally too. So in a team meeting, we might just whiteboard what are some, well, virtually whiteboard now, some things we want to start doing, some things we want to stop doing, and some things we want to keep doing. So it's a really good way for us to just assess, you know, are we doing the right things, and what can we do to improve? And you know, reflect on what's happening with some clients, maybe some challenges, and see how you can solve those. Doing start, stop, keep brainstorming as well. That's that. Kind of speak to that collaborative problem solving with files. So if a challenge has come up with a client, people will commonly say, hey, okay, I'm having this issue. Has anybody seen this before? I've got a couple of solutions. Can I run them by somebody? It's great. They're sharing knowledge and problem solving without me having to get involved in every single way. And then ask feedback from their peers and your clients. So, you know, when there's been some kind of job change, or you have a new hire on the team, it's good to ask their peers that are working with them, how's it going? Are they picking it up? Do they have any questions? Do you think there's some things that they might need to focus on? And you can ask clients once they've started to work with clients for a bit, you know, how's it going? Are you getting what you need? Or, you know, is the response time okay? Do you have any suggestions? And see how the clients are finding them as well. And then make sure to share that feedback and as descriptive as possible. So just saying, oh, I had a chat with Bob and he says you're doing a great job. It's nice, like flattery, but it's not actually giving them enough information about what they're doing well and how they can kind of enhance that, improve that. So, you know, being specific with and providing specific examples is much more helpful. Hey, Bob says that it was really great that you were able to make that quick change to the report really quickly for him, and then he was able to get that over to his partner, and they were able to make a decision on buying whatever equipment. Great. That's great. Your response time was really great, and they were happy with the quality of your work. Awesome. Keep doing that. That's much more helpful. All right, quick reflection. This will be the last one for today. So what do you currently have in place to hire, onboard, and develop your team? So what kind of structures do you have in place so far with regards to hiring, onboarding, and developing? Just take a moment to do that. You can probably predict what the next slide is going to be. What you want to have in place to hire, onboard, and develop your team. Quarterly reviews, yes. Technical interview and personal interview, great. Paul, what we do with those, because we have that structure, we have different teams that do that. So we'll have some groups of people that will be involved in the personal interviews, and then we'll have other people that will be responsible for the technical interviews. So the candidate will go through 2 interviews, and people are clear about the types of questions they need to answer. And great, some more validation of the 30, 90, and 1-year reviews. Awesome. And shadowing. Someone was asking about the raises. Yeah, so what we've basically done is taken the cash piece, or how much I'm going to get paid, out of the performance evaluation. So if you do an annual review and they get or don't get a raise shortly after that, then it makes it really hard for the employees to be totally open and honest in their performance review, because they're going to be afraid about saying something that might impact their pay. That's their perception. We know as owners that's probably not going to be the case, but honestly, we want to try to separate those things as much as possible so we can focus on performance, and then the pay is a different story. So we do them quarterly, and we literally just have our pay increases on their annual. So the whole team is on a quarterly cycle, the same cycle. So no matter when you join, you just jump into that cycle after you finished your onboarding, and then your pay increase happens on your anniversary date. And we're obviously taking into account how that performance is going, but it's not like performance review increase kind of at the same time. So we kind of separate them. And then benchmarks. Yeah, I mean, we do an annual increase for sure. And then, I mean, obviously, if they're moving into different roles, we would give them more pay, and the increases should be tied to we do pay for performance. So based after that year, okay, how did it go? And here's where you're at, then we pay them based on, it's not, we haven't got that completely mapped out, but it is the increase is in line with the performance that that we've seen, if that makes sense. Great questions. Okay, moving on. Our conclusion for today. Are you up for this challenge to grow your business and to leverage your team as a mechanism to do that? I really hope you are. Okay, just to set the scene where we're at in the world with our industry, 94% of our role, as the typical accountant role, I should say, will be automated. So that means that a lot of the work we would have had team members doing, that's a little bit easier to manage, more manual, administrative in nature, is automated. So that means that the work that we're doing is more complicated, and you can't do all of that complicated work. There just aren't enough hours in the day for you to do that. 83% of clients are demanding more of their bookkeeper and accountant today as well. So you have the technology is making that role slightly more complicated for our employees, because it's taking all the heavy lifting of the administrative or easy work, as it were, is there. And then also our clients are really wanting more out of us. So, and have more higher expectations for us. So really the market is really forcing us to get into this space of a little bit more complexity. So I want you to think about how will you meet the needs of your business, your team, and your clients over the course of the next little while here. So I have some next steps here. I did want to open up for some questions, and maybe what I'll do is I'll just go through these really quickly, and then we'll do Q&A. But if you're in the camp of, from the poll at the start of the session today, that it's just you and your firm so far, some things you probably want to, next steps for you to consider. All right, obviously you need to start looking for your first employee, get that job description and engaging job ad ready to go. You know, hire someone more skilled than you think you need. It might be a little bit more expensive than what you're hoping for, but this is terrifying. Sorry about that, but I'm here to enroll you in this. But you know, it's probably better to get someone more skilled than less skilled as your first employee, so that you can really focus on growing your business. Starting salary, Peter was asking, that's tricky. You probably need to check and see what the going rate is in your area, because it's very different. In Vancouver, we pay a lot more than in other regions because it's expensive to live here. But you know, Glassdoor will give you, you can do some quick searches in Glassdoor, for instance, to get some salary and wage ideas. And you're also going to have to, you know, put your ad out there, see what you get, and always ask them, what are you currently getting paid? And they'll give you an indication really quickly after a couple of interviews if you're thinking of what the pay is in line. And always be open to negotiating with the compensation. So if everyone you're talking to is wanting more than you were expecting, you know, are they going to be able to offer you what you need? And are they going to save you time, help you grow your business? You got to think about the opportunity costs as well as the budget. I know there's obviously a give and take there because you need clients to support the budget, but with your first employees, we really want to get this right. You know, document the onboarding plan, put structures in place to support each other with the day-to-day, and implement one application to automate your process. Okay, for the people who are in the I've got 1 to 3 employees camp, you know, have a meeting with your team and enroll them in your vision. Hey, I want to get you guys involved in an advisory. I really want to grow the advisory side of our business. Here's some services I want to offer. I can't do it all. Let's do this, guys, or team. And then figure out, you know, development plans with them on how we're going to do this. Set a game plan for executing the new responsibilities, say over the next quarter. Talk to them about what success looks like. You know, what does this new space look like? What are the opportunities that they can jump into with this? Plan to meet at the end of the quarter or even monthly to just see how things are going. Put structures in place to support each other. And again, you know, look to implement one of those technology applications that you wrote down to help get you there a little bit faster. And then for those of you who have 4+ employees, again, have a role, same kind of thing, you know, have a meeting with them to enroll them in your vision. Enrollment is really important rather than just telling them this is what we're doing. But here's what I was thinking. What are your thoughts? And they might have some other ideas too on things you can do from a services perspective to enhance your business. You can look at rolling out a RACI for tasks and new job descriptions, depending on if you want to start putting them into different types of roles. Maybe some of them are really excited about some groups of work and some of them are excited about other groups of work. So you can do things around there. A RACI is a way of mapping out the tasks for a team. So you have all your tasks on one side, and then you have your individuals. And then you put either an R for responsible, an A for accountable, a C for contributed or consulted, and an I for informed. And so for each of those tasks, you map out how each role participates in that task. And that can be really drive a lot of clarity for a team when, as a team, their responsibilities and their tasks are changing. It just make things super clear, and they can always just go back to that and refer to that. And it will help to inform the new job descriptions if you have to change those. You want to document your development plans with them as well. You know, set a game plan, same as with the last group. Discuss what success looks like. Meet at the end of the quarter. Put structures in place, and again, implement an app, or 2 or 3 or whatever you want there. Okay, this might sound scary. Someone said it was terrifying. There's lots of help. Okay, so I would urge you to feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, if you want to run anything by me. Also talk to your other peers. You can reach out to your team as well and say, hey, I'm a little bit nervous about this. Any suggestions? You don't have to know it all. The more that we are honest about how we are with things, the more they'll be willing to support and help out. Reach out to the firm owners. So the rest of the people here, if you know them or can connect with them, there's lots of great forums as well. There's one called QB-HQ on Facebook, which is a great place to reach out to other people in this space, and you can ask people what they've done. So get the help that you need to really get rocking here and grow your business. So here's my contact details. Feel free to reach out to me, like I mentioned. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Always happy to have a conversation and answer any questions. And I think we've got a couple minutes left, so if anybody has any burning questions, feel free to pop them into the question box here. Super delighted to have been able to spend the time with you all today. I hope you got some good tips and tricks. I know it's a lot of information to go through really quickly. I always put more content in my slides than I have time for. We'll get the slide deck out so that you can refer back, especially to that last section where you have your homework. It's the next thing to do. Feel free to ask any questions here, and I'll answer them as we go. I think somebody asked about software. So yeah, if there's any other software that anybody's using that I didn't talk about today, feel free to just jotting down in here in the chat too, so people can see what other apps people are using. QBHQ is also a great place to ask other pro advisors what applications they use and maybe some tips and tricks. And if you haven't been to the intuitapps.com site, there's so many applications there to help you that integrate beautifully with QuickBooks Online. Somebody's asking about Zapier. There are some, so if you haven't heard of the cpaacademy.org site, it's based in the US and it offers CPE credits, which is equivalent to CPD credits, which CPA Canada will accept. They have free webinars on every day, and there's a number of people in the space that do sessions on Zapier. Heather Satterley is also an expert in Zapier, and she does webinars on a regular basis on Zapier and how to use it in this space. So her name is Heather Satterley. I'd look her up. She's fabulous. And there's also the next Business Builder series. That's happening with Intuit is on Jan 20th at 1:30 with Anthony McLean. And it's a fabulous topic. I really hope to get to it. It's called Mental Health in Times of Change. So especially for those of you who have teams, really great to be aware of what might be happening for people on your team from a mental health perspective. So another great webinar you might want to jump on is Mental Health in Times of Change, and it's on January 20th at 1:30, Anthony McLean, and I think you can register on the Intuit site. And the website for the US is cpaacademy.org. And yes, Entreflow is a CPA public practice licensed firm. Where we do, from a tax perspective, just T2s and NTRs is kind of as high as we go. It's more advisory. And I can find the chats. Sorry, I meant to in the questions here. Melanie, what drums do I play? Somebody asked me about my drums. I used to be a musician. I still play a little bit. I play mostly kit drums. I used to play in a rock band. I also have some hand drums from India. I have a couple of hand drums as well that I like to play, and the bowron. I play the Irish bowron as well. Random tidbits of information about myself. Somebody asked about virtual team members. Yes, I think we're just at the space now where you're going to have to expect people will be virtual. So that mission, vision, values is so much more important in that space, because you really need to make sure you're going to hire the people that are really enrolled in that won't necessarily be able to see you on a regular basis to kind of get that through osmosis. So it's even more important now with virtual teams to be super clear about what you're up to. Okay, and I think we're pretty much at time here. So again, thank you all so very much for coming today, for joining me here. I hope you got some good tips and tricks, and feel free to reach out, and if there's any questions, and we'll get the slide decks out as well so that you've got that for your perusal when you've got some time to read it. Thank you all very much. Have a lovely day. And Anne-Marie, there's a couple, there's the apps are in the slide deck, so that might help for apps that we use, but I mentioned Fathom and Girave today, and that's J-I-R-A-V. And Jerry, we should have a drumming session at some point. I think that's all the questions. Okay, have a lovely day, everyone. Bye-bye.